I'm Michael Wilbur, and I am the tenor saxophonist in Hooch. I also play the bass sax. I'm one of the tenor saxophonists. Wenzel, the other tenor saxophonist, may be joining us, but I play tenor sax, bass sax, moog, incorporating a little bit of Barry in some of the more recent stuff.
Sweet. For those that maybe don't know or aren't familiar with your sound, I've heard it defined in a lot of different ways. Lots of different, labels of jazz or electronica. I don't know if you have a preferred label on the genre of music that you guys play.
We call it cave music because it's like house, but it's more jagged and natural to live in.
Mm. Is that with both the more acoustic and electronic versions of your sound, would you say?
Yeah, because even with the electronic versions, we're still playing saxophones, and it's a very raw. I think that is the core Hooch sound is the horns. Wenzel and I are on every track playing saxophone, so or a type of clarinet. So that's pretty essential, I would say.
Totally. I also want to congratulate you guys on your album release. I know it was like a month or two ago now, but still.
Thank you.
And it's great. I was wondering, the sound is a little different than previous albums, and I was wondering if there's anything you guys did differently in the production of this album.
Yeah, this is the first studio album that we did in someone's house. So our manager at the time, Dan Rome, set up a studio in his home for us to record in. And we approached it like we did the first album. We came in and just played some songs and tried to get the first takes. All of the songs were recorded all the way through, one take. So there wasn't any splicing together of other takes of the songs. There wasn't very much isolation separating the players. And it wasn't done in a professional studio. All of our other albums were.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of parallels to that process and maybe kind of what's happening in the chaos right now.
Yeah.
Would you say that, how are you holding up? Has it helped you adjust to making in isolation?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, this is not that different for me than my usual life outside of touring. When I'm home, I spend 90% of my time alone in my studio making music. So it's very usual for me. Like it's flying by. I'm enjoying it so much. It's flying by. It's like, oh man, this needs to slow down a little bit. But obviously, like no one else is feeling that way. And that's, outside of my own selfish reasons, I hope this thing's over immediately, obviously. But, this is kind of like a break from the capitalistic grind that I've wanted for years. Because I've just been out on the road for 10 years now, all year long, hustling. And it's like, it's nice to have a little break and like get a paycheck from the government.
Yeah, so would you say that you are using this time to feed your creative, are you working on stuff, or is it just like a...
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, my two main focuses right now are music and physical exercise. Those are the two things I spend most of my time doing. So I wake up in the morning and I just make a list every morning of what the day is going to look like. And usually the day starts with reading of some kind. I'm trying to read a book a week, just a modest goal, nothing crazy. But so I read every morning, and then I'll either practice saxophone for an hour or two, or I'll start producing. But I try and make music immediately in the morning, like right after I read. I'll read for like a half hour when I wake up, and then, an hour before bed or something. But I'll do an hour to 2 hours of practice, and then I'll produce. And then depending on what else I have to do, I mean, you can't go anywhere, can't do anything. So I've been going on really long runs. And that has been serving as a great meditation for me to clear my mind and center myself, and just feel healthy all around. So I'll go on like a 10 to 15 mile run, depending on the day. But I'm trying to run 30 to 40 miles a week. So I'm running quite a bit each day. And after that, I usually teach lessons. I'm teaching a lot of lessons. But then at night I do weight training of some kind, whether it's body weight or with dumbbells or kettlebells. And I also like to box, so I do that. And all the time in between, I'm producing and making music. I have all my synths set up right here. So I just, turn them on. Bleep, bleep, bloop. There it is. And yeah, it's really nice. I've found that creativity flows best when you have a good workspace. I think it's really important to have your workspace set up and ready to go at all times. If you're in your space, it should just be, you walk over to it and you can start making art or whatever your focus is. And I have that same with I have pull-up bar, yoga mat, like always right there, and that way you have a physical reminder as well of your practice and the path that you've chosen to be on. Like if you're a saxophonist, leave your saxophone out all the time. Always have it around you, and then you're more apt to pick it up. Because if you have that extra step, I got to take that horn out of the case, then you're more than, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. I see it in younger kids a lot. Like they won't take their horn out of their case and then they won't practice for like 5 days or something. But if they leave it out, it's right there. And it's like looking at them in the eyes like, hey, you got to practice me. Yeah, sorry. I just went on a rant of my day and my...
No, that's great.
I think everybody should do things.
Yeah. And you mentioned quite a couple times about, yoga and like meditation. And that you guys have that as kind of like a practice, a core like ideal for the band. And I was wondering if you wanted to speak about how, I don't know, like the philosophy of the band shapes the music that you guys make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think meditation is essentially a practice in presence, and presence is the key element of our music. When we're making our music, it's a meditation on sound. It's a meditation on this sound that we've created. It's almost a language that we've created, harmonically and melodically, Wenzel and I together. And when we're playing that music, we're in a state of presence with it. And it's the closest thing I can think of as being one with God. When religious people speak of God and their relationship with it, that's how I feel about music, and that's how I feel about sound. And I think that has really influenced Moon Hooch's sound a lot, because Wenzel and I are both seeking that relationship. So meditation has played a huge role, I would say without it, we wouldn't be who we are.
So you talked about how you guys created like your own language and sound, and I was just wondering how you set about that process. Like, did you find influences you wanted to draw from, or how do you go about that?
Absolutely. I think our most common influence is John Coltrane and the harmonic language that he created, the spiritual language that he created. We draw a huge inspiration from that. And then through dance music and bringing that sound to people, it created a new thing. And also Wenzel had been working on a cruise ship producing house music. And he started developing cliches, if you will, or motifs, melodic motifs from house music. And then him and I met, and I was on a totally different planet than him. I was like really into far out avant-garde everything.
Right.
If it wasn't experimental, it wasn't music to me, and then eventually I learned that everything is actually experimental. If you're doing it, it's an experiment, because none of us know the outcomes of our actions. Absolutely. So I started seeing life as experimental, and I met Wenzel, and he was into this music that I thought was whack. Honestly, I was like, this is like stupid. People like this. This sucks. And but then one day we all ended up playing together on the street, and it just popped off, and people loved it, and we were making money. People were dancing. It was something I'd never experienced before, because I was used to the jazz world. And we're on the street. It's like sweaty. People are loving it. It's like, this is unbelievable. This is happening right now. And we had to keep doing it. It's like, if that happens, you can't not just do that forever. That's the thing now. So I started doing it because it was amazing. And that melodic house pop melody type sensibility that Wenzel brought to the table, I integrated into my playing in my own musical language, and it merged with everything I had learned prior. And I think created a very interesting thing that, a Moon Hooch melody is a very specific sounding thing. I don't know. It's just like, if I hear a Wenzel melody, I know it's him. You could play me two MIDI recorded, just synthesizers, and I would know which one Wenzel wrote, because he has a very specific way of speaking, if you will, musically. So yeah, man, it's been a trip.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No.
I was just thinking, it's funny that you mentioned John Coltrane, because I've been listening to a lot more of John Coltrane lately, but before that I was very into your music. And so it was funny to go back to listening to your music after delving into Coltrane, and now I'm able to hear the way he's shaped your sound. Like, especially on your solo on Life on Other Planets with This Is Water, I absolutely like heard John Coltrane ideas, and especially in like the way you move the harmonies too. So I was wondering, did you just like sit down and analyze John Coltrane recordings and try to implement that, or how did that go?
It's interesting because I was never much of an analyzer when I was younger. I was more of a feeler and a listener. You know, I liked to listen to the music and soak in it, if you will. Like really become one with it, like emotionally and spiritually. And I didn't necessarily know what was going on, but harmonically and theoretically, but I felt it very strongly. It resonated with me. It struck a chord. And it wasn't until later that people explained to me what was happening. You know, like Wenzel, actually, he was very much an analyzer. And he taught me a lot of things about what was happening harmonically in Train's music when we were still in school together. And I had a few great teachers that did the same. And I started practicing the things that Train was practicing, you know, 1, 2, 3, 5 patterns, just moving through chords in all inversions, in all permutations, and all your scales and patterns. And I started to learn that what Coltrane was studying wasn't necessarily bebop or any particular style of music. He was rather studying music itself, music in its purest form, music in energy, but in also dealing with the 12 tones. He broke music down to the interval and the relationships between the intervals. So I started practicing those things and practicing intervallic approaches and moving through different cycles and thinking about intervals more and practicing that way. And then that's how I integrated the harmonic aspect of it all.
Totally. Would you say that there's any, I mean, you touched on it briefly, but are there any influences from maybe when you were younger that influenced your music now? Also, kind of related question. I know that there's a lot of like peace, love, collaboration, messaging on your website, like in what you speak. And I was wondering if music that has a similar inspiration has influenced you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, to be completely honest, everything influences me, which is why I try to have less influences. Information is just so much information nowadays. I could go down a whole rabbit hole about that, how we're just oversaturated in information. But yeah, I'm influenced by all of it. All of my friends and all the music I hear influences me, whether I like it or not. And that's cool. Yeah, I love hearing what people are doing with instruments. I love that the saxophone has such a resurgence right now. I feel like it's like alive again. It's an instrument that people care about. and that's cool. I don't know. It's 2020. It's a pretty old, archaic machine, you know. So
That's cool. I mean, I actually play saxophone too, and so I you know, I love listening to all the different things you can do with it. All different genres it seems to work in. It's really interesting.
yeah, man. Yeah, it's versatile.
Yeah, exactly. So who would you say are your favorite saxophonists besides John Coltrane?
I think the people who had the most influence on me were Albert Eiler, Sonny Rollins, Charlie Parker, Cannonball Adderley, Miles Davis, of course, Freddie Hubbard. I guess these guys, I'm naming trumpet players too, but Ornette Coleman, Stan Getz. I like Stan Getz. There's so many great saxophonists that really inspired me. But I mean, probably the first few that I said, that was probably like going down. The longer you have to think about it, Right. Peter Brotzman.
Yeah.
He's really cool. I don't know if you checked him out.
He's Machine Gun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, intense. Just like
that's avant-garde, man. Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
I had a question, not relating to this topic, but kind of relating back to the religious experience topic that you're talking about, because I was wondering how that translates now, if the religious experience has to do with being around other people at all, or if you feel like you can still get a similar love of while being in this isolation.
Well, I think that experience can be attained at any moment. And I'm practicing that more and more now. I think that's really what music has led me to, actually, is to a practice of life where I am, if you will, standing in the presence of God. God being whatever you want it to be, because I don't believe personally in any traditional dogmatic Godhead, but to me it's more of a presence. It's more of a and you could call that a psychological thing as well. Like, that's something, to me that doesn't matter. What you call it doesn't matter so much. I think that's like getting stuck on the signpost and not following its direction. But yeah, so to answer your question, I think I went down the rabbit hole a little bit there, but I'm using this time as an opportunity to be in that presence, just and be content with nothing, with doing nothing, just sitting and staring at the wall, and feeling my body, feeling my presence, and what that is and what that means. And when you do that, all of the competitive feelings that you have about others, all of the anger and whatever downward spiral you may be stuck in, if you really sit with it and watch it, you see they're just sensations that can be observed, and they go away like flies. They're not real. And I think meditation is so useful because it really brings you to peace wherever you are, in whatever state you're in. And it's a universal practice. It's not a religion that requires a dogmatic belief. And in fact, it can be practiced even if you have a religious belief. It can only benefit you. And I think it would really help the world out a lot if people took more of an interest in it. I think people have a fear of doing nothing, and this fear of not being productive. But sometimes it's the most productive thing you can be.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Earth. The Earth right now, and all the problems on it are a product of productivity. You know, excess productivity. And I hope that this is a good sit down for everybody on the planet right now. You know, it's like, everybody go to your rooms.
Yeah, I know it's sorry. I
Oh.
just wanted to mention that I know that's something that you guys are passionate about. You guys have partnered with a lot of like environmental organizations before, and I think I just wanted to say that's really cool of you guys, and I admire that part of your guys' work.
Thank you. Yeah. What were you going to say, Jacob?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I was wondering what your meditation practice looks like, and like how do you practice that daily?
Well, I'm not great at the moment about being very rigid with my practice per se. For me, it's more the way I practice it is by being present, using each moment as the practice. That has been my practice, really. But when I do sit, I sit cross-legged and put a timer on for however long I want to sit for. And I just breathe and relax my body and focus on my breath and the sensations in my body. And if thoughts come to me, I don't chase them out. I just let them be and observe them. And the thoughts come and go, they change, they morph. But bringing the awareness always back to the breath is really the practice. And eventually the thoughts won't want to come because the presence will be so strong. And you can just go right into it and be thoughtless. And once you can do that, you can do that throughout the day as you're just walking around. And it is a much more enjoyable experience. You know, you're walking down the street and you're really present with what's happening around you and how you feel, rather than clouded by the thoughts of the past and the future. So yeah, it's funny. Everything is really yoga and meditation. Like, Wenzel and I often joke about loading in to venues as like, this is yoga. You know, this is our, or like being stuck in an uncomfortable position in a van for 8 hours. Like, acceptance of the uncomfortable is really helpful.
Totally. I do want to be. I know that we've been talking for like a half an hour now, so I want to be respectful of your time. I don't know, Jacob, did you have any last questions that we didn't get to that you'd want to ask?
Not off the top of my head. I just, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been great. It's been nice speaking with you.
Yeah, great talking to you too. I don't know if there's anything also that we didn't get to that you wanted to bring up or plug.
Well, I am a big advocate of veganism and eating a plant-based diet. I like to advocate that you can build muscle and be strong and actually be stronger and more vital as a human being if you switch to mostly plants. And I used to be a big meat eater. I used to eat meat. I remember screaming at vegans. I would get so mad, like when I was a teenager, and And you know, I'd be like, where do you get your protein? And now I look back, I'm like, damn, I was wrong. And so I really advocate at least trying it out. I've been vegan for almost a decade now, and I feel excellent. And it also reduces your carbon footprint a lot. You know, it's the leading cause of global warming. So I think even cutting a little meat out of your diet is beneficial for both your body and the planet. I'm reading a really good book right now by Dr. Michael Greger called How Not to Die. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a really great book, How Not to Die. Definitely read it if you're interested in health and a plant-based diet.